I love that I have to put the party together from these people that are seeking to get EXP. I love that once you get past level 10, realistically, you cannot EXP by yourself anymore without getting curb stomped or without it taking forever.
Yeah.
So I really do. I think you could polish it up a little bit, but honestly, I freaking love the game as it is. Look at me. Like Nozomi has so many bugs. But guess what, dude? I got the nostalgia goggles on, dude. I don't even care.
Welcome, everybody, to the Casually Hardcore Podcast. My name is Brian, and for episode 28, we're very happy to welcome a very special guest, Chris Blevins, Ninja Invictus here, joining us on the program. Part-time streamer, full-time teacher, talking about classic games. Final Fantasy XI has had a real impact, and you and your brother had a real big impact on it this past fall. Obviously, we got WoW Classic coming up. And so, really, the question that this podcast hopes to discuss is the impact that these classic games have along with streaming culture. These games were not out when streaming was a thing. The game has changed. And so we really want to kind of sit down with you, get your perspective, talk about everything and anything Final Fantasy. But first, let you introduce yourself to the Work to Game, audience, to the fan base here. Who are you? What do you play? What do you like? And probably the best, what's your favorite Final Fantasy today? I know, I'm bringing the tough questions at the start.
So my name is Chris Blevins. On Twitch, I go by Invictus. Literally been a gamer my entire life. My whole family has since, freaking Sonic the Hedgehog way back when. And I fell in love with Final Fantasy starting with 7.
Okay.
That was the first Final Fantasy that I played. Then I went back and played 4 and 6. But yeah, I'm just a huge RPG fan. Literally my favorite genre. I don't care. WRPG, MMORPG, JRPG. And I would say my favorite Final Fantasy of all time is 9. FF9.
Oh, I haven't had anybody when I asked that question has gone with that, but they've all praised 9. 9 to see somebody come on the show and actually have that as their number one spot. That's great. I'm sure there are definitely going to be people who agree with you. I got to follow up then, because obviously if 7 brought you in, we were seeing something this past E3 with the remake of 7.
Yeah.
And I've had major concerns about it because it's such a classic. I was like, they could either wreck it and ruin it, or they could make it better, and that's a hard line to walk. What are your impressions of just the remake? Have you had hands-on impressions with it yet, or are you just kind of like us, like watching from the sidelines right now?
I've not had hands-on. I haven't gotten to play it or anything, but my friend Tom brought up a really, really good point. First off, the game looks gorgeous. I think we can all agree on that. And it does sound like they're keeping some of the turn-based things, so it doesn't look as actiony, or it isn't as actiony as it looks.
Yeah.
But dude, I'm so pumped because my buddy just goes, Chris, think about this, all right? He's like, what's the last game you played on your Nintendo Switch? And I was like, Final Fantasy VII. And he's like, no matter what they do with this remake, we're always going to have that game.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just super excited. If we don't like the fact that it's coming out in episodes, if it doesn't seem like we're getting our money's worth, then we're just not going to keep buying it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So we'll always have the old game, the old soundtrack. I'm okay with it. I'm super excited.
Now, I'm gonna jump in because I have good news for you on that regards, because the only question that I have is still, what do they mean by episodic? Like, what does that mean overall? But I've had a lot of people go hands-on with it, and they say the combat is phenomenal, and it's what they wished like even 15 would be. Like, if they gave 15 enough time, like it is, they're saying like it is that good because it is that turn-based, but it's also that same kind of, like, they found some kind of weird, like, magic line that they've discovered. And so they were like, everybody who's been hands-on with it, they're saying this is the battle system they want for like 16, and this is the battle system they wish they had for 15. And Brian, you can't wait to play it. So that is so thrilling. So we've got Chris Blevins here, Final Fantasy IX, favorite Final Fantasy. It's been a huge RPG. The thing that I was watching you play a little bit not too long ago was Kingdom Hearts 3. Did you ever finish that game? Like, let's talk about that for a minute, and then we're going to dive into our main topic.
Yeah, I did finish Kingdom Hearts 3. Man, what a journey. I gotta say, it had some emotional moments for me, but I walked away feeling just like, man, what is this game? Like, what's it trying to be? It felt like the Disney characters didn't need to be there this time.
100%. Like, I'm going to play it with my daughter. Like, hands down, that's going to be a game that Maddie and I are going to play this summer. But I was like, where's the Final Fantasy in it all, you know?
Like, yeah, it was so... It's interesting because when you play the first Kingdom Hearts game, you know why you're going to each one of these worlds. You've got a Keyblade, you're sealing the worlds, you know what I mean? You're protecting them from the Heartless. And when you use your Keyblade, all the Heartless disappear. And like that thread, it just completely is so convoluted by the time you get to Kingdom Hearts 3 that, yeah, I got to the end of that game and be like, what did I just play?
So I'm gonna toss it to Chris Y here. So one of the things that like he and I have talked about with Kingdom Hearts 3 as kind of a thread here is that, and you brought it up with the Switch and with Final Fantasy VII, is that Chris was like, I would have played Kingdom Hearts 3 if it was on the Switch. So Chris, like, I want you to talk about it because we both are just like been waiting on the fence for that game.
I really looked forward to Kingdom Hearts 3. I was really excited when it got announced, and since the last Kingdom Hearts that I played, like gaming has changed so much in how multiplayer it is and how active it is. So I have trouble wanting to go back to that really single player experience. And the place that I find that to be the best home is when I'm not at home. So when I'm at home and I have access to my computer, my PlayStation, all of that, I would rather play games with friends. I don't get the amount of time to game in a week that I'd prefer. And so I spend that time on WoW, I spend that time on 14, I spend that time on Call of Duty, I spend that time anywhere that I have friends to play with. Friends are almost more important to me than the content itself. I have dealt with on Xbox some pretty garbage games in the last 2 years because I had a lot of fun playing them with friends. And so it's like, would you buy that game? It's like, well, if you're playing with us, yeah, I'd buy it. Like, it's totally worth $60 if you're playing with somebody. But no, I think FPS lobby systems have gone downhill over the last couple generations. I don't know if they just forgot how to do it, but I'm fine with it because I'm still in chat with my friends. I think it would be much more frustrating if I was like focusing on how many games we get in an evening. And so if Kingdom Hearts comes to Switch, I will be the first person to buy it. I'm literally going to a friend's wedding coming up, and I'm going to be sitting in the car when it's my wife's turn to drive, and I'm going to have my Switch in my hands. Why can that not be spent on Kingdom Hearts? Like, that's my biggest frustration with that title.
I would have pivot on the multiplayer aspect of it. Invictus, have you played Titanfall 2?
No, I have not.
Oh my gosh! Like, it was what Chris is referring to is literally like it felt like they went back to maybe the GameCube or N64 era in terms of like how lobbies are handled. Everybody like you had to coordinate everybody backing out. Otherwise, like random, like you'd be like, "Oh, I forgot to press the button, and now I'm in another match." It was a nightmare, so that's it was like it's been a weird generation.
From my Xbox to your Xbox, like it was so bad. It was inventive. Like they did come up with a new way to do the lobby system. The old way was working. So what made it inventive is that this way doesn't work. But on that note, guys, this podcast will be put out on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, anywhere that you have podcasts. If there's somewhere that you're getting podcasts and ours is not listed there, let us know. We will do our best to get it there. And be sure you catch our last show. It was with Scott Zone talking about Final Fantasy XIV Shadowbringers. That one is spoiler free. Our next show about Shadowbringers might not, that being the big 14 release. So we'll just see that. And then we want to thank our partner, Exit Lag. If you guys are having trouble with lag or latency in any games, feel free to go over there, get 3 free days, see if it helps. Use code DOWORK for 20% off. And if it doesn't help, then don't use it.
Yeah. Easy breezy. And with the business stuff out of the way, let's talk about some classic games. And I'm curious because so it's no secret that Chris, your brother, is Tyler Ninja Blevins. And the fact is that I was introduced to like the whole Blevins squad. I have heard of you guys. But I was introduced to you guys this fall when all of a sudden Ninja streams Final Fantasy XI. And then it was like, what? Okay, why is he playing one of my favorite Final Fantasy games of all time? FF11 for me was my first MMO. And I don't know if you'll, being that you know this game, I don't know if you'll appreciate this story. I played a warrior to start, and I was really confused why people wanted me to provoke, because I was like, why do I want to get hit by the mob? It's like you guys handle it yourselves. I'm here to kill this thing. I don't know what this concept of a tank is. So I was that green. I'm sure I stressed some people out coming into that. I want, if you wouldn't mind, I'd love to know kind of like, did you guys expect that? Like, how did that conversation go jumping into Classic? Because Classic isn't supported by Square Enix right now. I'd love to know your perspective on that, because it was just something that I thought was 11 was at the freaking top of Twitch because of like you and your brother and everybody was like freaking playing it.
Yeah. So, dude, our love relationship with Final Fantasy XI goes back to I'll never forget this. It was Tyler's 13th birthday.
Okay.
And my mom comes to me and she's like, what do we get this kid for his 13th birthday? And I'm at Best Buy with her and I'm like, Mom, this is a new Final Fantasy game. And I just wanted to play it. So I'm completely selfish.
How old were you at this time? So like
I was 15.
Okay.
And I had seen do you guys remember game trailers?
Yes.
Yeah. So that was back when game trailers was a thing. And I remember looking at oh my God, it's an MMO. And I never played World of Warcraft. So it was my first MMO as well. And so we just dove in, dude. Same thing. I was a warrior using a pole arm. Later learned that was a bad move.
Yeah. The game will let you fail. The game will not it was like, you want to do it? Go for it.
Yeah. And dude, we fell in love and that's a big thing. A lot of people know about Ty is that he had a love for video games way before he started competing. Mm-hmm. And we both got obsessed. I'd say four back-to-back summers, just grinding that game together. And so when we heard about Nozomi, my friend Anthony texted me about it. Mm-hmm. And he's like, dude, you can play the original Final Fantasy up to Treasures of Ot Urgon. He's like, there's some bugs and glitches and stuff, but the meat is there.
Yeah.
The meat and potatoes. And so I immediately text Tyler. I'm like, bruh, let's go, dude. That night we both made our characters. We leveled up in East Sardubaruta together.
Yeah.
And as Ty is wont to do now, he's like, let's stream it. So.
Well, yeah, and it's that impact that was just truly fascinating. So Chris and I were out at the Final Fantasy Fan Fest in Vegas around that same time. So we were sitting down with executives at Square Enix, and I'm like, "What do you guys think about this?" And they're like, publicly they can't comment on it, but privately they're like, "You guys this is what happened. This is the numbers in and of itself. All the free copies that they have a trial for 11 ran out, which was it's interesting that you could run out of keys, but apparently they have some limitations on how many people can come try the game per month. You crash that market. Just the fact that even though it is on that private server, and then essentially the interesting thing is that you start to see this interesting shift, right? WoW Classic, is being announced, it's being talked about. They kind of had that same kind of direction, and so my whole hope with all of this is well, maybe finally Square Enix is going to do something with Final Fantasy XI, because it truly is a great game. It still holds up, minus the fact that you got play online, you got all these hoops to jump through, and that all of a sudden was streaming's impact, it cannot be missed in this regards. Are you guys I haven't had time, so I haven't checked out y'all streams in a while, but is that something that's a seasonal thing for you guys? Are you still playing on the private server, or are you on a break right now?
Dude, so I got a corgi puppy recently. So he's right now, I caged him, and I hate putting him in his cage because my wife's at work.
Yeah.
And I have literally been spending so much time with him, and he's not allowed. This is my gaming room. He's not allowed in here.
Yeah.
And so I don't spend a lot of time in here anymore, which means kind of Chris's mobile life when he's on his Switch, for this wedding, that's been my current life in my living room.
Nice.
I've had my Switch
freaking out in my kitchen right now because I won't let him roam the house, and he's not allowed in my gaming room.
See, yeah. I'm the pro here. The only thing that really I have children, which they respond better to human commands,
right.
Clean up the milk, please clean up the milk. Why aren't you cleaning up the milk? But like my dog, he's 12, and like puppies are cute, and I think they're cute for a reason, because a dog is the best. when that dog and you guys are working together and you know each other, and he's not, they're not going to chew up the walls. It's
I can't wait.
Oh yeah, it's great. Like it's paradise. So on like the Switch note, so what kind of kicked off the invite back this spring was Square Enix announced that they're working on something special for the 20th year anniversary of Final Fantasy XI, and that's in 2 years as it released in Japan. It's been like they've said going to stop supporting it, but yet they've continued to support the current game. Would this game, like especially with your current mobile life right now, would you want to see this game like on a Switch if they decided to do it? Like, what would be your ultimate wish for Final Fantasy XI? Like, I'm really curious as to see it, because you guys are playing the classic, the original, not level 99 cap, no trust, like hardcore grind. And there are a lot of people who agree with that. And that's why we're seeing also WoW Classic, when we go look at the streaming numbers on that. WoW, people who are playing WoW Classic, huge audiences, lots of interest. I think that we've seen probably some issues with MMOs being so popular for a period of time and then kind of shrinking down. So I've asked like 30 questions in that. I'll let you figure out which one you want to answer first on that one.
Yeah, I'll just start with the first one, and then we'll work our way through. So I don't care. I like, for as far as like bringing Final Fantasy XI to the Switch, if they were to do some sort of classic thing, bring it, put it however you want to. Nintendo's online system has been notoriously, I don't even want to say the word.
It's awful.
I'll
say it.
Yeah. So when you combine that with something like Play Online, I don't even want to think about it. No, I'd pop it on my laptop and I'd pick up a new mouse. But dude, I completely agree with you. And the biggest problem I see with stuff like this now is like, I hate arguing for the grind. Tyler has been texting me. We actually want to jump back into Nozomi soon. Nice. And head back. We love it, but like, I get it. You see all these articles all the time. They're just like, why is this barrier for me? Like this, there's so many barriers to get in. And so I definitely get that. But you're right. I completely agree with you. There's totally a market for a game like Final Fantasy XI and WoW Classic. And I really do want to talk about this whole streamer aspect of it, because it's going to change the game. The things that are happening right now. And Square Enix got lucky. They had Ninja already loved their game.
Right. They didn't have to sell it. They didn't have to like convince him to come play it. He's already done, and he knows all the pain points. Right. There's no like, so like the thing that I am most jealous of in this conversation is that you and your brother, I don't care who he is, got to play this game. Similar situation. I have a younger brother, and I just pitched it. I will pay for it. I'll pay the sub. Like, just come play this game. You've got time. You're in high school, bro. Oh, now you're in college. Like, what are you doing? Come play this game with me, because it just helps when, especially 11 is really, you need that buddy. Like at least one person, if not more, to really kind of get that static going. And then I try to pitch it to Chris, Y over here, constantly. Like, and he's a WoW guy, and that's where
I was in WoW.
Yeah, and so I'm like, you gotta come check this out.
To go to a different grind, it's like, no. I already have items that I worked really hard for.
So long story short, I'm a bad salesman, when it comes to 11. But it's just like, gosh, like you guys gotta come check it out. And then I look at like, we got a lot of questions because it's like, oh, let's put out some 11 content, because I was actually playing it a couple of months prior to like when you and your brother started streaming it, and I was like, what? What's happening here? This is kind of freaky, because it's like, oh wow, like that's interesting. Now I have like a way that I was like, I would talk to him about this. But it was like I was playing it, and it's like I knew what I was getting into. There was not like, I'm not going to be shocked by, what do you mean I can't do this? What do you mean to do that? It's going to take a long grind. Like, I remember back in the day, and I don't know if you probably had the same kind of thing. Just to get on the same server was like a horrible nightmare. Like, you had to go buy this like item and give them this code so you could hopefully get on the same server. And in a world where there's no cross-server communication whatsoever, that was a big a big roadblock. Play online still a huge roadblock. There's so many like problems with this game. So that's like to your point. Yeah, Square Enix got super lucky with the world's biggest streamer, one of the biggest like who doesn't know who your brother is? But I went on a monologue.
No, you're fine. Like I loved like when you said that we were going to be marrying the ideas of Twitch and massive multiplayer online games. I was like, dude, that's such an important conversation to have because that's all you need for a game right now. I don't care if it's a classic game that maybe the new generation hasn't heard of. All you need is a big streamer to play it and advocate for it. And so many games now. Think about Apex Legends.
Right.
Pay top streamers. Pay my brother. Pay Tim the Tatman. Pay Summit.
Smart.
Pay
so
Shroud.
Smart.
And have a good game.
Oh, absolutely. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's the
You gotta both.
right. That's the
Don't get people into your crappy restaurant. Like,
right.
Well, time out. I'm gonna disagree. Go ahead, Invictus. Go ahead.
But hold up. So, dude, that's what I love that you just said that, Chris, because that's where the Guy Fieri Diners Dine and Drives thing comes in, right?
Oh, great show.
When it's an ad, this is the player. Oh wow, this is this. Ba ba ba. Do. Right.
Yeah.
And then when it's not an ad, you see them go live with it the next day, and they're talking about it, and they won't stop tweeting about it. And so, like, when Guy Fieri doesn't like something, he's like, okay. And then there's time. Like, he literally can't stop eating. He's like shoveling more of the food in his mouth. It's the same thing with the content.
It's always cool when you get to see him be at a restaurant that you've been to. So when Chris got married, it was in Austin, Texas. And so we were out at, and I forget, it starts with a G, like Georgetown. And there was this restaurant, and Chris was like, you got to go for this. And I was like, this is great. And I was like, this food's incredible. And then later, Diners, Drive-Ins, Dives saw it. He was there. And I was like, I've been there. He is not joking. That food is incredible.
Right. And so you have those shared experiences. And I think, Chris is absolutely right. You put that potion together with a famous broadcaster and a really, really good game, and you're going to get awesome results, and you're going to get people wanting to download. And I think the free trial thing, I love how you said the free keys ran out.
Like it was done. People were asking us because we put guides and stuff together out for the YouTubes. And it's like, they're like, how do we get in this game? I go, you got to go buy it now. Like, like we were just like, go try it, because there are so many hurdles. You might find that you're just not into it, and that's okay. It's fine not to enjoy it. But I think that the thing with 11 is that because it was challenging and because there were those hurdles, when you achieve something, there was this real huge feeling of satisfaction, and that was the hook. I played pretty much to level 77 White Mage. I played from US launch up to the launch of 14, and I'm gonna get some. We'll topic that here in a little bit, because it's a curious piece when we start comparing classic to modern, and it's like that is the hook. I have this huge nostalgia, and this, like, every time I step back into Vana'diel, like there is an emotional experience zone to zone to 100%. Zone. And there's also, go ahead, Chris.
It was a different pacing back then, though. So like, keep in mind, yes, we got this sense of achievement, but the barrier to entry was also easier to swallow because there wasn't 12 AAA games coming out every month of the year.
Right.
So it wasn't like I had anything better to be doing. I was just out there grinding in winter, spring, because that's what I was doing in WoW. Like, what else was I going to be doing? I didn't have an unlimited amount of content. Right now, if WoW bores me, I can go get on Shadowbringers. If Shadowbringers bores me, I can go get on ESO. If ESO bores me, like, there's so much. Right. So the moment something gets hard, I can just go eat somebody else's, like, I could just leave. I can just, I can go.
Right. But who do we make these games for? Do we cater to the person who's just going to be kind of like dipping their toe in the pool and moving on? Or do we, and this is back to the Invictus's point about like the streaming culture itself because of that. One of the things I do disagree with that it has to be a good game is that you look at Flappy Bird, PewDiePie put out a video that says don't play this game, and it goes nuts. You know, right. It's not a good game, but it's still that it does help to be a good game in that regards, because it's not like he continued to play it, but it ended up becoming kind of this meme in and of itself where the earlier adopters are all like laughing, like this is actually a joke of why we played this, and everybody else is like, I got the high score on Flappy Bird. Like, okay, like the internet is such a weird and wonderful place in that regards. So, what do you like? Is it Tyler said something which I was like, gosh, that'd be so cool. Whether like he was serious or not, that he would contribute $1 million to them bringing back and remastering a classic version of this, a classic server. WoW is doing it. WoW is doing a classic server, and the streaming numbers are there. The question is whether they will hold up. My hope is literally Square Enix is like, yeah, you go ahead, Blizzard. Let us know if this works. Is this worth our time and investment? And then if so, welcome to Final Fantasy Classic. Get out of here, play online. We've remastered it in a way that like some of these things that we just don't need. Like, is that how does that compete against Fortnite? I'm just curious.
Well, and that's a very loaded question.
It is. That's why we're here.
So first off, I'll just say my brother knows so much about like how to market and what he's worth. He knows like you need to pay me X amount of money if I'm going to stream this for this because I'm going to make you this. So just the fact that he said not only would he not need to take money to stream like the game,
he would pay Square Enix.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just, I love him. He's so.
I don't have that kind of scratch, but I would totally jump on that board. Like it's to where can we get a group of classic 11 gamers to sit here and say, "Here's a pot of money, Square." Like, can we please, for the love of God, finish this?
Yeah, he's so funny that way. But yeah, for the second part of that question, where like how does something like that work today? Yeah, you're not gonna get the same market that you have with Fortnite, especially because if Square Enix is gonna make their money back, there aren't microtransactions or skins like there are in Fortnite, so you have to charge some sort of subscription to the game. So yeah, I think honestly, with streamers playing the game, if they brought FFXI Classic back, I think it could be fiscally a good decision. But I don't think it would blow up at all. Absolutely not. And I don't necessarily think WoW Classic will. Like, I think it's going to get a lot of the old people. I think it's going to get some new people because Tim and Summit, like those old people are now huge on Twitch. So you're going to get a new audience as well, but I don't know how well. I can't wait to find out.
Yeah. Chris, why?
So there's something different about how you enjoy an MMO versus Fortnite. So Fortnite is that very firecracker moment, right? You win and it's just this big boom and you feel great. But you could win at any time. So you're just scratching, for an average player, you're just scratching lottery tickets on which lobby you get in, unless you're at that level where you're performing so far above the average that it doesn't matter what lobby you're put in. So like in a Call of Duty game, I can do really well one match. And then because they don't have a ranking system, I can get tossed in the next match and just get my butt handed to me. And so you have to have that instant joy, and that has to carry you through the bad as you get better at the game. But with an MMO, it's a lot more of a slow burn. It's that slow build. So when I think about games before streaming, like one of the games that I really remember having a community to was Diablo 2. And I remember going to school and talking about that item that dropped and talking about, you know, what you got in your meth runs, and that being so exciting. And that was the joy of the game, was sharing that moment. But it was all by word of mouth or by forums. Now it's like, no, I was in the 100,000 people when I watched Asmongold clear Ultimate. Like there's this communal experience that is different. The question is, how do you get in the lulls? So like, yes, he cleared Ultimate, but like, what about the 20 hours of content it takes to get there? You know, when we're building up to that next raid, like, yeah, Method can have a big turnout for World First, but what happens in the 3-month cycle and content cycles between? And so that's where I think MMOs are really going to struggle, because Twitch is about that daily audience. You got to keep it. My streamers can't take breaks. You've got to keep them tuned in.
So can I,
please?
I'd like to add on to that.
Please.
I think where that gets solved is the daily interactions. I think one of the craziest things that happened in Nozomi were that fans found out about it, made a character on Nozomi, and used it to talk to my brother.
Yeah.
And to talk to me. We immediately got a link shell. I made some really good friends. I met one of them. Literally, I met the leader of my link shell, Eric. I met him in Nebraska.
Nice.
We went out to lunch together, and it's like that kind of thing. Like, you can't pay for that. Like when my brother meets some of these kids, like at TwitchCon or wherever he's at, it makes you should see their faces. It's some of the most I can't even describe it. It's so authentic.
If you go look at the podcast that we did with your brother John, that was kind of me, because it's like when I was like, oh, your brother Ty is streaming 11. I was like, oh, he's got an older brother too. Oh my gosh, like I was like, I kind of like fanned out and was excited that we got John on the podcast this earlier this year, and I was just like, but yeah, I get it. Like there is that sense.
Yeah. So imagine like one of your favorite streamers is right outside getting ready to start a raid with all their friends, and you're outside and you're literally typing in the chat like, good luck. Like you're on that server. I think that's enough to like imagine taking that Twitch community to the next level. Oh, I can talk in the chat. Oh no, now I can maybe go on a quest with this person. Like obviously there needs to be limits, but I don't know. I think that's one piece that could help.
Do you think we're anywhere near any kind of market saturation for kind of the live streaming, for lack of a better term, creator economy? Like when we talk about it, because like Chris is writing down a really cool question, like how do we feed player interaction, content development, or do we even have to? But from a tools perspective, like we've seen, Twitch bring in so many things, the ability to do cheers and to be able to interact. Mixer with Microsoft's trying to compete in different ways to make the stream more engaging. And I think from those changes that we'll see with like extensions, etc., is more of these games building in that kind of interaction, building in the understanding that somebody could be streaming this game and having that kind of interaction. So from a Quest perspective, I guess the ultimate question beyond just like taking a classic server of this game, does Final Fantasy XI, does WoW Classic, even though they want to kind of adhere to the emotion behind what we enjoy about it from a classic perspective, is it better to go and remaster and build in those kind of tools so that we as players, just whether like Ninja's outside my house or the fact that he's streaming, and then we can have that quest together, we can have that engagement together, and it's easy. And we've seen like even with Stadia, with Google kind of talking about, hey, you can kind of put your coin on the dash, and then you're next up for to be able to play with this person who's streaming.
Yeah,
like, people are trying to do stuff. So do you think we're anywhere near market saturation, or are we just at the tip of the iceberg for what's possible with streaming?
Yeah, I would definitely say no. I think my brother opened the door, and I think a lot of people are still growing that are gonna sprint through it.
Yeah. When they like, I don't know however much he got paid, but like it was rumored the volume, and I was like, that's not enough. But it's a good starting point. Like when you go look at the eyeballs that YouTube and Twitch has, like people are advertising through like your brother and different popular streamers for pennies on the dollar comparative to traditional media, and that media is on its way out, in my opinion.
Yeah, dude, Ty's already teased a couple times on his stream that something insane is coming, and so I'll just say that's all I can say.
In terms of technology, or in terms of like games that he's going to be playing.
Yeah, just in terms of streaming.
Okay.
All right. So we're not done changing the game. All right. But I would love if you could get in some sort of queue. Like imagine that, dude. Like imagine, I would assume that the game would have to pay the streamers, right? So if you're going to get a big name streamer to do something like this, it's got to be fun and it's got to be interactive. But yeah, they're going to need some sort of compensation for playing with the fans. But that would be so cool, like a dungeon finder, with Tim the Tap Man, dungeon finder with Ninja. It's like when they do random duos or random squads, when they jump in with all these people that like, oh, queue up for a random game. Maybe you'll get me as your teammate. It's a really cool concept.
Does that break the classic interpretation of these kind of MMOs though? In that regards, like. Kind of what I was hitting it earlier with the kind of the emotion behind it, because we don't have a kind of a dungeon finder in 11. We do in 14, and I've heard I don't know your opinion on 14, but I know that Tyler said he didn't like it, and that does have a dungeon finder. So there are some. I think we lose a lot with dungeon finders personally. Go ahead.
And then you keep taking it to the next level. And it's like, now, not only is there a dungeon finder, you don't even need to play with other people. Use the trusts. They'll come with you. It's like, Jesus, dude. Like, It's an MMO. Like, if you want to go play a single player game, go do that, man. Like,
So the reason for the trust that I'm excited is that the problem with these games is as they age, you either have to let people skip over the previous content like an ESO does, where you can just come in and just bite off the current stuff, because you see these streamers, right? So you go out there and you watch any number of streamers any time of day, and they're all playing the current stuff. They're all playing the current aggressive stuff, which is everything the developers worked on in the last few years. But when you talk about games like 11 and WoW and 14, where you've got 5 or more years of development prior to whatever people are playing, then you end up with this gap where it's like you have to overcome that gap. And so you have to play through all this old stuff. And the problem with that is that the old stuff is not just old, it's also stuff that they've fixed. So like the battle system may have been clunky, the inventory system may have. And so what I'm excited about with Trusts is that one day 5.0 will be old. I'm excited about Trusts for that day. Like, it's cool that it's in the game now, but what I'm excited about Trusts is that one day I'm going to be in 7.0 and somebody's going to join the game and they're going to play 5.0 content and they're going to be like, the queues are 40 minutes because you don't want to come back and run old content. It's like, you're right, I don't.
Right. No, and I only use that as like a grumpy old man.
Yeah.
Like, I 100% would be that guy. If I was playing 14, I'd be the guy queuing up I'd be like, leave me alone, let me catch up.
That was Chris. That was Chris White. So one of the challenges that we have, because we get this a lot. He gets you don't like probably like our videos, so don't know, but he skipped most of the story. So I played 11, went to Final Fantasy 1.0, 14 1.0, went into 2.0. He joined me in 2.0. Started basically skipped the story to get caught up because I had already have everything at cap. And it was like, okay. So then that just kind of continued. So people give him a lot of like crap because it's like, it's a Final Fantasy game. You can't skip the story. And it's like, well, that's a good opportunity to put story summaries up. But the same kind of concept is like, you kind of come in at a disadvantage. And it's like, even right now, like, I don't know if you follow Skill Up, but Skill Up has just started playing Final Fantasy XIV. He just started crossing over into the Heavensward expansion, and he's already at almost 90 hours before even getting into that expansion. And it's like, well, hey, do you want to come play with us in this latest game? Well, yeah, sure. Like, well, I'm glad. Buckle up, you got 250 hours a game before you can join me. It's like.
So do you think?
I hate the jump potions though. Go ahead.
Do you think Classic remedies that
in a way? Well, I think it's
everyone
how
starts back at 0.
I think what happens with that is that Chris has said it multiple times, and I agree, is that at some point there has to be either, you've got to bundle in jump potions so that everybody kind of starts at this chapter, and that's a learning curve in itself, or there is that moment where, yep, here's a fresh new game. And I don't know if that means, in my mind, that they reboot 11, or if they do something where it's like, okay, here is a new starting point for that game. I think 11, when you look at 11 versus 14, though, handled it in different ways. Like even ESO does it, where you can, every expansion, because they kept the level cap at 75 for so long, every expansion was horizontal in content rather than a vertical. And when you look at 14, it's so story narrative. It's like you are watching season 1, season 2, season 3 of like a series. And so starting in season 4, narratively, you're going to be lost. With the 5.0 just came out and actually has done a good job up to like 1 or 2 points where Chris got like, he's like, I have no idea who this character is. But other than that, like it was pretty solid. It's a hard thing to say because I like you, more identify with 11. I more identify with that investment in in the grind, and the fact that like Promethea comes out or Argot comes out, or like Goddess comes out, and it's like, okay, cool, I can go jump into that now. I don't have to complete the previous tiers to be able to kind of enjoy the content itself. I don't have a right answer here, honestly. It is weird because for 14's case, and I'll let Chris ask this question, like at 6.0, 7.0, like at what point, like, is it impossible to onboard a new player because it is 1,000 hours of story and grind? Right.
The question with these replaying is that there was a progression to the world the first time through, right? Because nobody knew what they were doing. Mm-hmm. Even just from a boss mechanic standpoint, we now have 15 years of documentation on what a boss can do. And back then there were times it's like, nobody's ever fought a dragon. So like, what, and so like, I ran all the Shadowbringers stuff blind, and even brand new mechanics didn't fool me, because we have, as gamers, we have this dictionary of 200 mechanics in our head. And so when you invent a new one, we're just like, oh, that's kind of like a mix of these two. And we just naturally adjust. And new players may not have that, but any player who's been in MMOs 10 or more years has seen every mechanic or something like it, and they have yet to truly surprise us. That's why I was so excited at the Rathalos crossover in 14 last year, is because they really did kind of change the way it worked for what we would get in 14 bosses. But with WoW Classic, that means you have to accelerate the patch schedule. And so my question is, what happens at the end of that? So you can't go 3 months of patches, because it's not going to take, there isn't going to be a race to world first. Everybody knows the boss. They're just going to blast through it. So if we race through, do these classic games become seasons, like a Diablo season? Do they become just a seasonal? And at the end of that season, do I have the option to move on to the next expansion, or do I just go back and reset? How do you make this more engaging?
Yeah, wow, I never even really thought about that. You're right. People are absolutely going to blast through the content. And I think that's now I played World of Warcraft recently, like a year ago for the first time. So I never played Classic.
Sorry.
So real quick, can you answer this question? Is WoW Classic as grindy as Final Fantasy XI?
So WoW Classic, I didn't play 11, so let me just kind of explain it, then you guys can decide if that's more or less so.
Okay.
Oh, and Brian didn't play Classic back then. Brian played a little later, and they'd already changed all the quest XP and the way things were.
I tested around with Burning Crusade, but I only got up to level 40, and then I stopped.
Yeah, so during the time of Classic, when you picked up a quest, you had to read the quest. It did not tell you who you needed to kill. It literally mixed in the quest text, told you where to go, and you could find out after 30 minutes of killing something that you've been killing the wrong thing. And you're wondering, well, why would you kill something for 30 minutes? That's because you'd be told to go gather bear livers, and you'd be killing bears, and they wouldn't drop the liver because it's like a 10% drop rate. And always drove me nuts that they didn't put like an adjective on there where it's like a pristine liver, so that there's at least some justification why the 10 bears I just killed all didn't apparently have livers, because it just asked for liver. And so you'd be killing murlocs for murloc eyes, and they'd only drop one eye at a time. It's like, what am I doing with the other eye?
Okay.
And so you're out there, and you would just spend, and things are punishing. You die a lot. And when you die, you get teleported to a graveyard, and you have to run without a mount back to your body to resurrect.
Okay.
And so dying can be a huge loss of time.
I got a bigger loss of time. Go ahead, Invictus.
So then I guess that means that maybe it'll be a little harder to burn through the content. I know, like, for something like, do we want something like Final Fantasy XI Classic? I absolutely do. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's something, Final Fantasy isn't something where you can burn through the content. You can always level more jobs. You can start crafting. It takes forever to get a craft up in Final Fantasy XI.
How long does it take to get to cap?
It would take months. It took me a year.
Yeah, if you don't have a steady, like a good, first off, you have to have thief leveled so that you can farm mats, because you need a way to get
that treasure hunter.
Yeah, because if you don't have money,
To put this into context, to help kind of be the translator here, because I did experience what I would say some Classic in the terms of Burning Crusade a little bit, is that in 11 you would be on a quest. You don't have a person who's saying, hey, here's the quest start. You might accidentally start a quest and not really know it. And you have a concept of missions, which are basically your MSQ, in which you rank up. And essentially there's this ongoing, more sandbox kind of struggle, as opposed to kind of a narrative quest focus. But where in WoW Classic, you would farm those things. They were instanced to the drop, and they were to you. In 11, those things would drop regardless. And so the quest givers, the people who want items, would, hey, I want this item. And so there was more of a player-driven economy, so that, like, I might be farming something and I get this other item. I'm like, well, I don't need it. I can sell it. And all of a sudden there's a market for it because somebody needs it for a quest or something all the time. Because it's like, hey, oh man, that's going to take a long time for those bear livers to drop. Well, not really. I can either choose to go spend my time, or maybe I have guild because I'm doing something else. And so there was a more relational player economy that was driven off of that perspective. And that's what I initially enjoyed in WoW, because I felt like, oh cool, like I'm actively engaged. But then looking back on it, I kind of miss the fact that like when so much stuff is like unique and not tradable, and it's so much a personalized gear experience, it ends up kind of like removing kind of the need to survive together. It becomes that I've kind of said that with 14, it's like especially the latest expansion, the story is so good it feels like it's a single player Final Fantasy game, like
100%
at its quality.
I played all the way through the what was the Blood one, the last one?
Stormblood? I'm so sorry. I didn't like Stormblood.
Yeah, I played through all those and I loved the story, man.
The story's great. I would highly encourage you to check out Shadowbringers at that point, because when I thought Heaven's Word was probably the best expansion and probably the best telling that they've done so far. Shadowbringers, I think, is probably the best story that they've told in a Final Fantasy game, probably in the last 10 years, maybe more. Wow. The characters, like, it benefits from all the characters and what's come before it, so it doesn't have to do a lot of like exposition on who this person is, because they expect that you've at least talked to them at some point. But it just is like it knows what it's doing, it knows where it's going, and it delivers probably one of the best villains that we've also seen, in a story so far to date. So I highly recommend that. But it's weird, especially when you look at 14 to 11 itself, where these these games are so different, and I want a blending of it. So what brought me back to 11, even before like you guys started playing it, and that made it even more exciting, because I was like, wow, like somebody who knows this game so well. Was actually in 14 they introduced a concept called Eureka, and it's a very sandboxy element. It's very 11 in its combat. Lots of combat, lots of grinding on the open world mobs and stuff like that, where you'd get a party. And they brought in some cool features like chaining, in the sense that like you would have like a visual indicator, like chain 5. So like did you ever play 12?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they brought basically that chain mechanic in, so that you're like, oh, I'm going to keep killing this. They brought in like more elemental aspects. And I was playing it and I was like, gosh, I miss 11. Like I miss this kind of, content from 11. Chris, you look like you've got a thought you want to share?
I think what was unique about Eureka was at the end of Eureka, so you had to clear basically these chapters. And so you clear the end of these chapters, and at the end they had a piece of content that had really little to no in-game communication, partially by design, partially by technical limitations. And what it resulted in was these Discord communities that popped up. And what that became incredible for is, to get back to the main topic of streaming, watching people clear aspirational content. So where 11 and Classic are going to be exciting is that when you lock content behind, in WoW Classic, it took me 17 days to get to cap the first time I played. The world record, my understanding, pre-Burning Crusade was like 4.5 days of playtime. So it's an insane grind to get to cap. And
Wow.
So when you see people running the end game content, it's aspirational just by existing. It doesn't have to be aspirational because it's hard. It's not aspirational because you're the best. Just seeing somebody in end game is exciting. Just seeing somebody that has their epic mount is exciting. Just seeing somebody. And so I think when we talk about 11 and we talk about like where 14 kind of had some 11 tributes, what I'm interested in is like, do you think that 11 has that kind of content that's going to make it where I'm willing to watch you and just live vicariously through you? And if it doesn't, could something like that still succeed with streaming?
Yeah, I think it totally does, man. Endgame in Final Fantasy XI is so fun to watch. The monsters are unforgiving. You can spend all night camping one, right? Like the HNMs, the ones that drop top tier drops, and then another link shell gets the claim, and you don't even get to fight the monster, dude.
And that drama too. But to pivot on that same kind of thing, just for your thought, you part-time streamer, you teach full time, so there are times in which that you have more time to play games. Like, how is 11 balanced in a way that makes sense to where you can enjoy it, that your brother can enjoy it, who is a full-time streamer? Like, when we look at it, like, we all have jobs, right? Like, I can't, you got a new puppy, like,
And I could be way better with it. The fact is that I just really want to be engaged in training and raising my puppy, but I could totally whip out my laptop and fish and make 200K while my dog is sitting on the floor. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so I definitely think that there is that ability for people like us who have lives. you have to find the time, you know.
Yeah.
You got to make, you have to make the time. And there are days where I just get home from work, and I'm sure you guys can relate, where I just don't even feel like logging into a game. So
yeah, I ended up like the first time I actually left 11 was I got in a long day of work. Like I ended up I was exhausted. I finally got into a party, and we wiped like 3 times. I leveled down. I was like, I'm tired. I'm calling it. And I was like, if I hadn't played, I was further along. I had anti-progress, and it was so painful. And that's where, like, so Chris's point, like running to a graveyard being a time sink, like I think 11 had a much harder sense of it. And so the idea here is obviously that, like, is it possible to remaster a game like 11 while at the same time modernizing it without sacrificing the kind of that classic element? Because I think that if they were going to modernize it, like if you're going to ask me, like, what do I want from 11? Well, A, I want it out of play online. B, I want to see some modern features brought into, like, the link shell, managing friends. I'd like to see some of these things. Like when you look at some of the things that 14 does real well, like, yeah, that's kind of makes it easier to kind of get into the game. And then it still provides challenges in certain areas. But you can't take that and apply it 11 without sacrificing what made 11 11. And so it's a weird balance. We had a couple guys like Hunting for Games and Mione on to talk about it, and at some point they asked the question, like, if you modernize it too much, is it even a game? Because we see the trust system in 11 now. We see the level cap. So you and your brother are specifically not playing retail. You're playing classic because of that challenge. Can you talk to us about that for a little bit?
Yeah. I love that I have to put the party together from these people that are seeking to get EXP. I love that once you get past level 10, realistically, you cannot EXP by yourself anymore without getting curb stomped or without it taking forever.
Yeah.
So I really do. I think you could polish it up a little bit, but honestly, I freaking love the game as it is. Look at me. Like, Nozomi has so many bugs. But guess what, dude? I got the nostalgia goggles on, dude. I don't even care.
Yeah.
Tyler and I, we don't even see it. If I would have told him about some of the bugs before we started playing, he would have been like, no. But once we hit level 10 together and we were hearing all the same music and everything, it was over, dude. It was over.
Go ahead, Chris.
Does that make it more likely to cause burnout in streamers? So something that's really well polished, like a League of Legends or like a Fortnite, where there's a round based and there's a clear objective, and being good at it is measurable. When you talk about streaming these MMOs, one of the hard things there is there are going to be streamers that, to do something interesting, they're going to grind fishing for 25 hours. And so, because they want to be the top whatever. And so, I got to go grind these mats, or I have to go. Do you think that leads to more streamer burnout? And if so, does that damage the game? Like, if these games are so benefited by streamers, then does the content end up kind of hurting them long term?
I think you could actually do some really cool shows. I think creative content creators could have, like you said, like a fishing episode once a week where they open up the floodgates, and while they fish, it's like a talk show. Mm-hmm. And they're reading the chat, and they're super interactive. I think that opens up more doors if you're creative. Because you're right, that would be super boring if they were just hitting control one, and you had to sit there and watch it. I fixed this. The way I used to fix it was I wouldn't stream that.
Okay.
So I would do that off stream, but I'm not a full-time streamer, so they might not be able to afford to do that.
Yeah, I can't imagine somebody who literally can calculate their revenue by hours streamed and then say, okay, now go offline for 30 hours.
Right. And then that was the biggest thing so Tyler almost ruined his audience because of me.
Because of you?
Oh, dude, when a couple years ago, I got him back into it, and I think he lost like 4,000 subs. Like, this was before he blew up. Mm-hmm. We got back into the game, and he didn't want to stream it. And so what did that lead to? It led to less streams. Now he's so big, it doesn't matter. He could stream FF11 and still get 10K viewers. Mm-hmm. But back then, dude, when he was getting 500, 800, he would stream FF11 and get 30. So that's going to be tough for some of those mid-tier to low-tier streamers who are trying to make it big. Absolutely.
That's interesting. I mean, because I can't imagine it. I mean, your brother said something in an interview talking about, like, yeah, he went to this event, and it's like, he lost like the number of like it's like it is have this always be streaming mentality. I can't even imagine. That's why Chris and I were like, oh, we're YouTubers, like hands down. Like we had a video go live before this podcast. We have a video going live after this podcast. Like it's so like from a work perspective, it allow like I'm like doing meetings, doing work, playing with the kids.
100%.
You know, videos are rocking out. Like it's just like pop 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 pop, and it's so much more. Now we have fun streaming. I've always kind of viewed it as like remember the N64? Remember split screen? Like this is like there was a South Park where they had the member bears. Like I remember this. But remember like split screen? I look at streaming as modern day split screen in that regard. So like it is just us hanging out, having that conversation, and that's where I think the community aspect is more valuable for MMOs. And one of the things that's interesting, you talked about the fishing, right? And one of the things I think is really fascinating that we're seeing with WoW Classic, that we're seeing as a part of these streams, that when we kind of just go hang out while I'm like at work and I'm just kind of listening in, is that when there is that, like these games have this natural kind of downtime. These games have this bigger gaps. So where I was watching your brother like stream Fortnite, and he was then engaging during mid round as opposed to during the content, because he's focused, right? You want to like right. I don't want to be sitting here and then getting shot in the head and be like, why? Right. Like people are like, why am I watching this guy? All he does is look at the chat and die. But within an MMO, it has that more communal based aspect. It's so fascinating that before he blew up, that you almost wrecked him by streaming 11. Oh my goodness, it's so fascinating.
And now you like one thing he wants to do is just, like I've said, pave the way. And so now we talk about leverage, right? If I'm going to lose $50,000 because I went here for the weekend, you better pay me at least $50 to leave my house. And you could do stuff like that. You could show, it's not hard to show Twitch revenue. Hey, right. you want me at this event? This is what I would have made. These are where my views are normally at this time. Mm-hmm. I need some sort of compensation.
Right.
But yeah, I think the community part is so cool. And it does have so much potential. I mean, for good and bad, there's going to be people that log into these games and harass streamers, just like there are stream snipers. Mm-hmm. But then I think it's going to create this opportunity to have real fans of gaming have a real connection
as opposed
authentic,
to I had a guy, and he was like, and a great guy, and he was just like, he would have really big streams. But it was always around the newest game, and then he said that just kind of died off. I was like, well, they're just kind of like there's a part where the community we're having a relationship, and there's a part where people come in and just casually check out to see if they want to get that game, and that's all that like that relationship was for this individual. They're like, all they're doing is evaluating if this game's interesting. That's why I think streaming, when it comes to like when you compare it to video game reviews, that's where it's going. Like video game reviews, I think, are pretty much dead. People write them and then they get so much crap for them. Like I was talking with Destin Liguri over at IGN about it, and he's just stressed out. He puts out a review and it's like, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. Like there's no winning when it comes but to a stream, people are actively engaged with the content. They're actively seeing you play it. You're having a real conversation like you would if you were like over at your buddy's house. Like, holy crap, this is a great game. And that's what the magic of streaming in my mind.
Brian, and that's the thing. Even if it's an authentic, as long as it's authentic. I think Chris is right. Maybe the game, or was it you that said it? No, you said it, Brian. The game doesn't have to be good. You can get so many amazing memes from a stream when a streamer's playing a crappy game, which makes the viewers want to play that crappy game too. You're totally right.
They all get in the joke, and it's just like, and then it's really funny. The whole real joke is that when you talk about viral content, is then it spills out into the other world. Like when my mom's calling me and she's like, Brian, like, well, okay, I'm hearing a lot of talk. Like, should I get this game for your cousin or something? I'm like, hell no. We're all laughing about it, but we're all like in on the joke. So like, please don't spend money on that game. But that's how it's so evolved. Now I want to loop back. So, is there a risk for that when it comes to kind of the memory of these games being damaged by the company going in and retooling it? Like WoW Classic, it's not the actual game that was released. They had to go in and tool it. Like, they have to worry about credit cards. They have to, here's some hacks that were discovered. Like, they actively have to go back and put a lot of work into it. Same thing with 11, but tying it all the way back to where we started the podcast with 7. Like, What
Yeah.
is there a risk here? And I'm curious as your thought, because if Square Enix did decide to do something with 11, is it something where, because of its service-based nature, I think this is the difference between 7 and 11, is that because it has to be on a server, there is no way that, like, other than the fans at Nozomi doing this and allowing you to kind of go and play that, like, that's the risk. I think I didn't phrase the question for.
No, I know what you're saying.
Can a game lose?
Yeah.
Can a game lose? That's the question. Can a game lose if the memeing is good for them, and if Apex being amazing is good for them? Can a game lose by having streamers share it?
Oh, dude, absolutely. Do you guys remember what was that for? I never like to talk bad about games. What was that one? That one battle royale just before Realm Royale. It was like based on the 80s. It was super funky.
I do remember that. I don't remember the name.
I honestly don't. Like,
They
Apex
asked
was
Ty
great.
to play it. Ty played it and annihilated the game. Like, was like, this is terrible. I'm stuck in the wall. Like,
Let
so,
the lesson
yeah.
be, make sure your game is ready.
Right, but so I don't think there's a risk, to Brian, to go to your question, for Final Fantasy XI or WoW Classic, because even if they do something like say here's the original game, even if they do something a little here, like you said, maybe add a little quality of life.
UI would be the one thing that I need, because I have a friend who tried to play it in 4K. You cannot play 11 in 4K.
Right.
It is impossible. You can barely play it in 1080p. Anyway, go ahead. Go
Brian,
ahead, Nick, please.
So, but as long as it's not too big, guess what you and I are going to strap on, Brian? We're going to strap on our nostalgia device, and we're gonna play, man.
Heck yeah. So, what's your main in 11?
I love Ninja. A lot of people don't know this. I was Ninja before Tyler was Ninja.
Okay, I need to know this story now.
So yeah. So when we created our gamer tags for the first time, he had a different one, and I've always been Ninja, Invictus, Ninjas. I was a Ninja all the way in Final Fantasy XI. I never got another in the original game before. I guess before. I sound so bad saying that because it's still the original game. Before Abyssia, let's say that.
Yeah.
Ninja was my only job. That was the only one I loved. It's the only one I maxed out.
Yeah.
And then Tyler became Hyper Ninja.
Yeah.
And so then eventually, obviously, he's way bigger than me now, and he was able to get just Ninja on everything, which is so good for the brand. But yeah. That's how that happened.
So, oh man, I could talk to you all day about this. This is just a fun conversation. But do you have any final thoughts? Anything you want to? That we talked about a wealth of things when it comes to the streaming culture, to the challenges of streaming with classic games, etc. Floor is yours. I liked it. Yeah, and then also, where can people find you, follow you, if you got anything content you're working on for this summer, any plans? Obviously, I'm really hoping that you and your brother come back to start streaming some 11, because I really just engaged with that content. Like, I was like, this is cool. And also, how can we get your brother John to get in and play some of these like really cool games? Not he's just tooling around with Halo and Fortnite. Like,
I can take all those. So final thoughts. I think the classic ideas are great. Obviously, we have to think about other people, but for me, it's definitely something I'll be checking out. Tyler and I want to dip our toes into WoW Classic Vanilla. We'll see if we like it. I'm definitely going to give that a shot. On Twitter, I am Ninja_InvictusX. On Instagram, I think I'm Ninja_Invictus. That's it. And then on Twitch, I'm just Invictus. I got the original. I'll definitely be streaming some Spyro the Dragon soon. Just some relaxing games, just to chill and hang out with my community. As far as my future, and I can't wait to definitely play some more FF11. I'll see if I can get my bro and I on that, but I don't know. I think Chris kind of talked about this earlier, about his gaming experience being about community and being about playing with friends. And I think if you could do that, we can pull John in, dude. There's a new MMO coming out. Just got Amazon just announced the Lord of the Rings, baby. Lord of the Rings MMO is being worked on by some of the developers from all the old MMOs. Like
wow.
World of Warcraft. So, dude, let's jump into
That's exciting to see that people are still making MMOs. Like, it's kind of felt like MMOs have really kind of taken a back seat for a while. They were the thing when people were all pursuing the subscription-based model, and since then it's like, okay, people don't want to pay the subs, and that's where I think Fortnite, like when people talk about like that model, I think it's a very healthy business model from the seasonal content. It's like, okay, let me just get you in. It's got, both games have a sunk-in cost. Like, I've invested a lot of money in 11. I haven't invested that much in Fortnite, but there is that, like, oh, you've got all these skins, you've got all this time invested, you got friends money.
Right. Yeah. Hypothetically, you can buy the season pass in Fortnite once.
Yeah, exactly.
A $10 cost, and then use that to buy all your other battle passes, get all your seasonal skins.
If you play.
Correct.
Which is exactly what they want. That's because if you're not playing, then no one's like watching, no one's talking about it, etc. It's so important.
Yeah.
We'll be sure to get your links for all of that for your socials, and make sure to include it in the description of this video when it goes up on YouTube, as well as all the SoundCloud and all the podcast services this way around. Chris B, Invictus, thank you so much for joining us. Chris Y for Work Together. Like, what do you got? Like, what are you working on? What do you wanna promote?
I am working through Shadowbringers content. I've got a big chunk of things I want to achieve before WoW Classic. And so when I look at the math, there really isn't time for days off. So my wife's like, hey, we're going to my friend's wedding in July. I was like,
cloud gaming needs to be a thing. Like,
I'm really excited you guys are getting married, but this is, I'm behind. And so I'm excited to be getting through that. It's exciting to have content so engaging that it's hard to step away. It's exciting to have a game that I feel like I'm giving something up by logging out. So I really am appreciative to Square for giving that experience, and I hope WoW Classic can do the same thing. Next week, the podcast will be with Ruby from Gathers Together, Final Fantasy podcast. I think we're thinking about talking about, if he's done through a story, we're going to be
spoiler review. Yeah,
this will be spoiler. So finally, we'll have some Shadowbringers content where we can say at the beginning, sorry, catch us next week if you haven't finished, because I have so much I want to talk about with that story. And as somebody who didn't like story in 14 so far, it's wonderful that they finally got me. It might be the best MMO experience I've had in the last 10 years.
Nice.
Yeah, it's really good. All right, guys, for Work to Game, my name's Brian.
My name's Chris.
Guest Invictus.
Yes! Man, freaking pro, this guy. Like, we always let people kind of figure it out, and it's like, you didn't even pause. Thank you so much for watching this podcast. We hope you have a fantastic day, and take care. Hey, it's me. It's been a while since I talked to you guys directly this way, but don't tell anybody. We've got even more epic content planned for this channel. The response has been incredible. We hope to see you. If you're new, hit subscribe, leave us a comment. I'd like to talk to you more about video games. I can't seem to speak my language. All right.